you always have this voice going in your head, and it's kind of like that voice is always going to be telling you different things, like depending on how your external circumstances are. So relying on like the voice in your head to like get you through that discipline is a terrible idea.
I'll intro how I discovered you and like your content, and then you can kind of give like, an introduction that you identify with too, I guess, right?
For sure. That sounds good.
So last summer I was working out with my brother in my backyard, and I freaking like tore my groin or something, just severely injured my groin. And so I don't know, I like immediately like Googled or like YouTubed how to rehab it. And somehow in that ethos, I think I discovered like your content, and I was just like, whoa, this is dope. This is like an alternate form of exercise. And I feel like a lot of your content's just amazing in a lot of respects, but yeah. And then I just started kind of like keeping up with the videos weekly, and I got excited for them each week because it would just bring a little different piece, different vibe every single time. And yeah, and so I've just been kind of like, through that, I was like, this dude is really dope, super talented at what he does. And I don't know how we ended up connecting. I think I just reached out and showed some love on Instagram, and you were like, yo, that's dope. And then and then I found out that you were a fan of Kyle's music, which was like really, really cool. So yeah, that's how I discovered your like YouTube content, which I think is strength side, which is like the ethos of like a lot of what you're doing. The other thing I think about your content that's really, really dope is that it's not just specifically like follow along videos. It's really like mindset and philosophy and spirituality and all of these things that kind of like mind, body, spirit, you know what I mean? Getting in shape is much more than just, throwing around weights or running a marathon, right? It's like, there's so much more that goes into it. So yeah. So if you want to just give yourself a little intro.
Yeah, man, that was cool. Thank you. That was really nice to hear. And I think your story is similar to most people that find me, because we have on strength side, I just have a lot of varied content, so there's almost something for everyone. And I think everyone that ends up coming, along to strength side finds me in a slightly different way. But then, they, a lot of the time people resonate with the message of, I think my main message is just using your physical practice, using what you do with fitness and with your body to help fuel self-growth, you know what I mean? And to explore these avenues of yourself. My coach who I work with, he always says the thing is bigger than the thing. And I resonate with that so much, because it's like, yeah, push-ups, yeah, pull-ups, yeah, like all this stuff, stretching, but like, what is this doing for you that's kind of like pushing you past what you're comfortable with, essentially. So yeah, that is what we explore a lot on strength side. And lately I've just been trying to like find ways to blend those, try to find creative ways to drop in that little like mindset and philosophy with, stretching your body, moving your body, strengthening, stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. And then, so after we connected, we kind of got to talking, and we discovered that we have like a similar background in playing basketball. And obviously that's like really, really cool. I think student of the game started as me being a student of the game when it came to basketball. And so I think that I just feel like that concept, that beginner's mind, I've allowed that to kind of shape my adult life, and really trying to just being a lifelong learner, and just like loving new information and applying it. How has like talk about your journey in sports and basketball, and then how it's transitioned into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why, I think that's why we clicked right off the bat, is because we kind of we're on similar journeys, we're doing different things, but the journey is the same and the process is the same,
Right.
and, yeah. So, playing, like, I was just all about sports growing up. I played 3 sports in high school, and then eventually like went to college and played basketball. And, I just, as like a young man, really enjoyed just being a part of something, and um and just the process of becoming, better at basketball, but also just like the process of a season. You have this preseason where you're just putting in all this work, and then you get to enjoy the games, and it's all process based. And I think, eventually I ended up figuring out that, well, when I finished playing basketball, I was kind of at this point where, like, I almost kind of became depressed, and I was like, what do I do with myself? Like, I was so identified to Josh as the basketball player, and then that's stripped away from me. I'm like, well, shit, like, now what do I do? But eventually I came to find out that, oh, I was actually just in love with learning, and I was in love with, like, having a coach, having a mentor, having someone who's guiding you along the way, who's like has more life knowledge than you, that can help you out, and that, like, I just started, not all at once, like, gradually understood this. And then I was like, okay, I want to take this same route in the way I train my body now, and I want to, like, chase different goals, and I want to find mentors that can help me get there, and just always be in the process of pursuing something.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, you're the process thing is interesting because I think what's gotten you to this point with like your YouTube channel and Strength Side as a whole is just been consistency. Like when we caught up on the phone, you mentioned that you like uploaded a video per week every week for like 5 years, and I'm like, just that in itself is just like so admirable. And I think especially like what we're seeing, like we're in this era where it's like social media is just so relevant. Like everyone sees the value of it. Everyone sees like the leverage and the arbitrage that is like growing an online audience, whether it's for like your dog or for, your business. It's like
Yeah.
literally like everyone understands that it's like it's made all our lives better for all these reasons. And so, and the one thing that's like the crazy through line in that is consistency. Like just keep doing it. Post every day, post 4 times a day, post once a week, post 4 times a week. It's like, so at the same time, when it comes to like YouTube content, making videos isn't easy. You know what I mean? And like cutting them together and making them thoughtful and making them creative and making that and shooting them and like getting the takes right. Can you talk a little bit about like when you started that? What were you doing at the time? And like how you've been able to just maintain that?
Yeah, for sure. And when we talked previously, we kind of connected over, we were both fans of Tim Ferriss, and consumed a lot of his information. And I don't know if it was, I mean, I know Tim Ferriss says it, and then also, people that he plugs you into and stuff. And I just kept on hearing the consistency piece, like, if you want to build anything, it's all about consistency. And I just really took that to heart and was like, all right, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And just started. And at the time, I was into YouTube. I followed people on YouTube, and I thought YouTube was like a really cool platform, because, like, video is kind of king these days, I think. So, I just was like, all right, I'm going to have, like, because I also like to write, but I just felt like YouTube and the video piece would just be like an accelerated growth opportunity. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just dig in here. I'm gonna start making videos. And back then I was so green, you know, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just bust out my iPhone and, you know, film a video in the gym and publish one a week. And I did that I did that consistently for at least 4 years. And like the kind of like the hard part is that it takes so long to grow a following. So for 3 years, you know, you're just posting videos and like you have a few people watching them, you know, like, but not really an audience. And it is just it's a practice in like just believing that you're gonna get there, you know, eventually you're gonna get there. And then it started to like, as I transformed into more of, I think, like a leader and a teacher and someone who can share with people, then, you know, just correlated with strength side growing a lot. And yeah, those two just like really kind of are so correlated, you know what I mean? Like when, as I grew, the channel grew. And that's one thing that I always also kind of prioritized was my personal practice. I knew that, you know, I wanted to build a business. I wanted to build strength side, but I also knew that I couldn't do it if I wasn't right, you know, if I wasn't mastering some type of practice, you know. And I've seen people in the industry who put all of their juice into the business, and you get really good at business, but maybe, you know, like you haven't really accomplished the things to then be in that seat to really affect people, you know. And then there's also, of course, we see the other side of it, like people who are just extremely talented and but just don't know how to market themselves or create a business or anything like that, right? So I started to understand, okay, I have to blend these two. Like the successful people find a way to do both, and that's currently what I'm still, you know, trying to master is building a brand, building a business, and without letting that take away from the things that I really value for myself in terms physically and mentally.
Right, right. Yeah, because at this point, I think you're at like what? I saw you post something the other day, like 250,000 YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, we just hit 250.
Congrats on that. That's awesome. That's crazy.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, and that's all kind of, I think last year around this time we maybe had like 50,000. So
Wow.
like 200 in a year, you know, like it caught some growth. So, you know, that's kind of what I was like explaining, was it was like a long time of like not much, and then like, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
accelerated.
At what? So just because like even for selfishly, like for myself, like starting this podcast, right? This is the second episode I've done. So like the first 3 years, like what did the numbers look like on like year 3, like the third anniversary? What was it looking like on that during that?
Well, I specifically remember like being pretty happy when I got to 20K, like 20,000 subscribers. And I think that was around year 3, and maybe year 3 was even like 15. And then like in between year 3 and year 4 was like 20, 25, things started to go. And then, I mean, what essentially happened was like, and I think this is common for YouTube, is one of my videos kind of caught fire and went like viral, I guess. And then just had like a big stream of people coming to my channel. And then some more videos caught fire, and that just accelerated the growth, you know. But yeah, the numbers were very small for a while. But also, like, if anybody is like trying to do this for a sense of business, in like, you know, making a living, I really don't think you need like 250,000 YouTube subscribers. Like you can do it with a much smaller following, you know. Like, yeah, I'll just say that.
What time did it start becoming your full-time gig?
Oh, well, it was like I was like almost doing strength side as my full gig, but I was keeping some part-time work on the side. And, you know, now looking back on it, I think that energy of not going full-time into strength side was actually holding me back a little bit. But it's
Wow.
scary, right? Like
Right.
it's scary to just be like, all right, I'm just like gonna release like this steady stream of income and just go for what was my side project for so long. But yeah, it was like right around the time when things were like really shooting up. I was just like, yeah, this is kind of it's dumb that I'm not committing totally to this thing when it's like just growing massively, overnight. So I was like, all right, I gotta cut the cord, and like this is my full-time thing. And so glad I did that. Like things just work themselves out. uh, um yeah, I'm a believer in like energy, and like you put some good energy, and like you say to the universe, like, this is my thing, and as long as you believe in it, things come back, I think.
Right, right, right. The video, that first video that you mentioned that like kind of caught fire, that went viral,
Mhm.
like talk about that video in retrospect a little bit. Like what was different about it? What set it apart?
Oh, dude, yeah. So, thank you for asking that, because I had right around this time when Strength Side started growing, was I kind of shifted my mentality of being like this guy who was trying to be an expert in, like, I was kind of just mimicking other people in the industry that I really liked and that I still really like, but I'm not them. And I was and I just shifted to a mentality of, hey, like, let me just share my story. You know what I mean? Like, let me just share what I've been through. Let me share what's worked for me. Um, and kind of immediately when I did that, and this is this like knee strengthening video, right? This one really, I think it has like 2 million views on YouTube now, but um, I just, instead of like trying to come from the point of like, I'm this expert, let me show you the exercises that'll like help your knees, I was like, hey, I used to have excruciating knee pain. Like, I tore my meniscus, I had patellar tendonitis, and then I used these exercises, and then I like showed myself doing some, you know, movements that like most people can't do with their knees, and I'm like, now this is what I can do. And people liked that, and I started taking this mentality of like, why don't I make my ideal audience me, like 3 years ago, right? Like 3 to 5 years ago, what would I have needed to consume? What would I have liked to consume? So this is for Josh, and I've just kept going with that. You know what I mean? Like, I've kept going with that mentality, and just the way people relate to my videos now is so much different than ever before. And I think it's just because I'm just being like completely authentic.
Right, right. Yeah, I honestly, like, in starting this podcast, that has also, for me, um that's been just such a pillar. Like when I first had the idea for this in like 2016, it was like, you know, I wanted to kind of pass the rope back to like my 18, 19, 21-year-old self, who like dreamed of being a music manager, but was also interested in all these other things, entrepreneurialism, fitness, you know what I mean? Just lifestyle.
Right.
Right. And, I think that that's kind of I look at it now as almost a responsibility to pass the rope back. And that's what helps me overcome the fear to like sit down and like make this happen, even though I'm a complete novice. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so I think that that's cool. And then when you're talking to that person, that younger self, hopefully you're doing it with like compassion and empathy and love and thoughtfulness and all the things that go into it. And I think that when people are consuming it, they feel that, and hopefully that's what draws them to the content or the story.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm like, so I think what you just said there is so important, because I think when you like level up in your life, like whatever you're doing, it like you forget where you were like a few years ago very easily. You know what I mean? And if you can tap into that like feeling of like, oh yeah, I remember me during that period of time, and like have compassion for that person and then relate to that person, like, yeah, you're gonna really connect with them. You know what I mean? And I think it's really cool what you're doing, because I mean, to me it seems like pretty a pretty niche thing. You know what I mean? Like being a manager in the music industry, and then like also being interested in all these other like fields of life, and then trying to help younger people who might want to do what you're doing or something in the same frame. Like that's really cool, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm honestly like you, like, what did you say? The thing is bigger than the thing. That was like
Yeah.
that's a bar. Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
subscribe to like the, how you do anything is how you do everything, you know? So
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
I think, you know, like music management, artist management and stuff is like, you know, how you manage your artists has a lot to do, is probably very similar to how you manage the rest of your life. You know what I mean? It's probably how you manage your diet and your exercise routine and your relationships and all of that. So like, I think that like this, even though like, I don't even consider Student of the Game to be like a music management specific podcast, but I just think
Right.
it's a lifestyle. I'm trying to create more of a lifestyle brand where it's just like, we're interested in everything and we want to like find a few things to go deep and master and like, you know, really dive in on some things. But especially like when it comes to lifestyle, like that brings me up like another thought that I had is, I think, and I think we mentioned this previously on our call together, but like, I think you've done an amazing job. So they say like success, people who are truly successful and happy match their career to their lifestyle really well, and like their natural abilities and their natural inclinations and things that they're just already naturally really good at. And like with me, like growing up, I've always just been like such a talker, you know, and like early on, just like kind of noticing some of the affirmations that older people would give me, whether it be my parents or whether it be, you know, older people. Like sometimes they would chuckle at me because I just would have a million questions, right? I was just so
Right.
curious. And I would like, there were times when I would just like annoy my older brother's friends because they would be sitting playing video games and I would just be like rattling off all these questions, which is like also just proof of why I should be doing something like this as well. But you know, just
Yeah.
being a talker, and I've noticed that in the music business that has helped me a lot, you know, like
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
being a people person, being curious about people and stuff like that. But like, you've just done an excellent job of matching your lifestyle and creating a career that just like flows. Can you talk a little bit about that as well? Because I think the more I've gotten to know you and about you, it's like Strength Side is a lifestyle. It's not like you're doing this every day anyways. You're not stopping. You're just like turning the camera on
Mm.
occasionally, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah. Um yeah, well, when we talked like a while back, you had said something that I thought like was really fascinating, and you were like, it was something along the lines of, I guess it's kind of like what you just said, but if you like, the goal for everyone in our modern age and our generation is kind of like to create something um, that you can like make money from or support yourself from, just like what you're interested in life, you know? And I was like, damn, yeah, like when you put it like that, it really can be the goal for most people, and most people like can find a way to achieve this, I think, you know. um and yeah, so you know, my story is like when I got out of like post basketball, you know, I started being a personal trainer, and I kind of just fell into the personal trainer life that's kind of mainstream, which is just like working in a box gym, lifting weights, just kind of being a bro, you know, like drinking beer. And what happened was I took a trip out of the country, and I had never traveled before, and I went to Costa Rica, and I got to like spend a little over 2 weeks there. And you know, I'm just like chilling with all these travelers and some locals, and I'm just like falling in love with this like lifestyle, you know, even though I was only there for 2 weeks. But I'm like, dude, I want to be a vagabond. And uh I realized that like my lifestyle was kind of boring. I was like, man, like I could tell you so much about muscles and whatnot, but I like I can't really connect with anybody from just talking about muscles, you know. And I really was just like, I want to be a more interesting person. not to attract people, just for myself, you know, like I want to get interested in things, you know, and that just started to like shift my life into, okay, like I want to travel more. So I don't want to be, I don't want to like have to rely on a gym and weights. So I started doing more body weight training. I realized that I was like stiff as a brick from basketball and from like powerlifting. So I got into mobility and like stretching and stuff. Then I started like blending these two. And, you know, at the same time, I start trying to adapt to, or I start trying to create this lifestyle of building a business online and traveling, you know, like being able to just pick up and go whenever I want. And it all just like, it all flowed, you know what I mean? Like it all flowed. And I just started, I guess the word would be minimalism, you know, and also like I recently read the book Essentialism, which I think is a really cool concept as well, of just kind of like really dialing down the things in your life that are important to you and just focusing on those, you know, and not like having a lot and not, you know, I stopped like really prioritizing material possessions, and you know I started prioritizing like experience and being able to spend a lot of time outside, and like training in parks and stuff is a lot of what I do these days. So yeah, it became like so much of just a lifestyle, you know what I mean? And I was able to go places and still prioritize like my goals for my body, you know, and not having to miss a beat. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I've read Essentialism too, and I've been obviously like diving into minimalism and stuff too. And there's something to be said about a lot of that. I think that once you start stripping away a lot of excess, you start to really find out like what truly matters and what you actually need. And it's a lot less than you think, you know?
Right.
I think that like in North America, we just have this tendency to just go more and more and more and more and more over the last, you know, I would say, I don't know, whatever. And ever since probably like the Industrial Revolution, we're just like realizing like we think more equals better, you know. And it's interesting because during this time, this, you know, this coronavirus pandemic, it's like it's causing us, I think, to probably rethink a lot of this, you know. Like I think you and I have similar lifestyles in the fact that like we can work from home, like we have our own space where we can do our things. Like, so like fortunately my life has changed very, very little even during this time. But, it seems like it's similar for you. But yeah, I think the more you know, the less you need, you know. And I think it's interesting that you say that too about like traveling and then subsequently wanting to be a more interesting person, because I have been that dude like in my life a lot, where like there's the handful of things that I just love and I'm super fascinated with, and I just dive super deep into those things. But like outside of that, like I can't have a conversation about a lot of things. You know what I mean? It's like I like, you know, and I think that like, you know, I find that like I appreciate my older brother Hylas a lot for that, because he's that way. You know what I mean? He's always kind of like, he's got good conversation skills and small talk skills, and he just knows a lot about a bunch of different things, you know. And I think there's always like it just, you know, and those type of people are attractive and they're interesting. They're fun to be around. You know what I mean? Because like when you're, like you said, when like all you know is like muscles, and like for me it's been like basketball and then like music industry, and it's just like at some point it's kind of like you can't connect with like a lot of people. But yeah, so
and I think like a big metaphor for that is most of us in the US only speak English, and then like you hang around like Europeans and they're speaking like 3 or 4 different languages, you know, and it's just like very humbling. You're just like, oh fuck, I've been like so just tunnel vision in my own life, and there's a lot more going on out there. And yeah, it can be really interesting to to like learn new things. And I'm still very similar to how I was, you know. I still am like more of like a master in like these things, but I've tried at least to like get outside of the box, and I think just that trying really creates a lot of growth.
Right. Um, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things there too, because of like what we're talking about earlier with like consistency and what it takes to kind of grow an audience. It's like you have to be really, really specific and really, really dedicated, And I think there's like, me and my girlfriend go back and forth a lot about like the ability, like in this lifetime, the ability to like, growing up as an athlete, I think there's a lot of parallels also with like mastery, It's like you see someone like Kobe Bryant where like he literally spent what proved to be his entire life mastering the game of basketball,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
took it literally to the top. Whereas like, for me, like I didn't have that talent to take it to that level, or else that was my first love. I would have probably played as long as I possibly could. Right. But like,
Right.
it's funny because, skimming over a lot of things sometimes can cause you to miss the real thing that you can go deep in, and the thing that you can build a business around, and the thing that you can provide for family and really support at a certain level, So it's like, I think that is also a touchy subject too, because it's like we want to be really versatile, diverse creatures and be able to do a little bit of everything, but it's like it could cause us to not get to the point,
100%, dude. Yeah, and I completely agree. And it is like you have to flirt between this like specialist and generalist. You don't have to, but I think healthy people do. And but yeah, you definitely have to dive deep into whatever you want to be like your main thing. You know what I mean? Like yeah, you can't just yeah, I mean, like we see people that jump from one thing to the next. Everybody has like a friend like that and just never quite like accomplishes what they want. And I think physically training is like a big antidote there of like you like start doing a training program, and then like you're super motivated on it, and then like 3 weeks later you like found this other training program that you're like, no, this is the one,
Right.
um yeah. And if you can't dial it in to just commit to something for a long time, then you're most likely not going to see the effectiveness and the results that you want to see. And yeah, man, that's been a big learning lesson in my life, is just committing, like just being like, I'm just going to do this, like even if it doesn't seem like it's working, I just going to keep doing it. And whenever I've done that, it's always been positive.
Right. Commitment is interesting because it's also it's just such a switch, it's just a mental switch really. And like, even from the standpoint, I have like just interesting commitment stories in my life where I'm like, when you just decide, and then there's a lot of things that you got to kind of like, Tony Robbins said something, I'm trying to find the exact words, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he basically just said that like stop negotiating with yourself, like,
Yeah.
and like, he just is like, don't negotiate with terrorists, you know what I mean? Like, he's talking about how he talked about his like his morning like cold plunge routine, and how he's just like, he doesn't like, if he takes any amount of time to ask himself whether or not he wants to do it, the answer is no, and he'll figure out how to talk himself out of it. So it's like, I think that
Yes.
setting up those little triggers that just kind of remove the human emotion and human error in order to like just get you to where you need to be, I think. And it's hard when you're managing yourself, I think that like, I wanted to kind of like dive into just your day to day a little bit, and how you kind of like manage your routine. Cause obviously consistency and discipline is something that's like just turned into, or you've like proven that time and time again, And so I think that like, whatever it is that you're doing now, I'm sure is like interesting for the listener to kind of like.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'd like to hear yours too. But okay, so first off, I want to say completely resonate with what you're saying there. And I just read the book, The Untethered Soul. Have you ever read that?
Yeah.
Dude, it's such a good book, man. And
Insane.
like a big takeaway is that, you always have this voice going in your head, and um it's kind of like that voice is always going to be telling you different things, like depending on how your external circumstances are. So relying on like the voice in your head to like get you through that discipline is a terrible idea, right? Because like if you're tired, if you're hungry, like there's always a different version of you know what I mean? Like you just
Right.
had a coffee, you might be feeling very motivated, but like if you're later in the day hungry or whatever, then you're going to be feeling a completely different way. So yeah, I don't really know how to describe it much more than what you said, of just like cultivating this switch that's just like when I commit to something, and I like there's this switch that I'm just like, all right, this is what I'm doing, and sometimes I halfway commit, but the switch was not switched on, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, I think I want to do that, and and then I end up not following through with it completely, and then I look back on it, reflect on like, oh yeah, I didn't flip that switch that I usually that I usually flip, and I've I've been through like a lot of phases in my adult life, and I went through a phase where I was training like literally like 5 hours a day, and that was just all that discipline, like doing like already did a 3-hour session in the morning, and now it's like evening time and I got to go back and do like another 2-hour session, and just like nothing in me wants to do that, but for some reason I just would go do it, and like I don't know, I think that you could probably relate, like developing this at a young age with playing sports, like you just kind of like learn how to do whatever the work is, whatever the coach tells you to do, like you just go do it, and for better or worse, I definitely have that in me. But I like I don't I I don't really what's a good word? Well, I guess I just like I don't like that style of like grinding myself down anymore. Like I would never train that much anymore. And nowadays, my rituals are kind of built on my mental well-being a lot more. And so right now I'm in like beautiful Oregon. I'm renting a place that's like right on the Rogue River here. So every morning I just go down and I sit by the river, and I meditate. I do like a guided meditation usually, because I just find that that's kind of easier to just get my mind like in this zone and good frequency. And and I just try to put myself in a place where I'm like feeling really abundant, like a lot of opportunity and really inspired. And then I usually like have a cup of coffee and journal for a little bit. And my journaling is kind of similar. It's all like trying to get me just in this mind frame of appreciating my life, like giving a lot of gratitude for the things that are here, and then also kind of trying to step into the places that I want to go, so like feeling like what it feels like when I am accomplishing my goals, and just writing my goals down, and then just writing how I'm feeling for the day. And yeah, man, like that my mornings have been so good, especially if I can do that in nature. It's just like, whew. And then
Yeah.
after that, I get some movement in, and then generally in the morning, it's just like pretty light movement, stretching. Like this morning, I was just kind of like feeling like just dancing around a bit. So I played music, and I was just kind of like more of like this animal movement, locomotion stuff. Yeah. And that's kind of my morning. And dude, I'm loving my mornings right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, the morning is so crucial. Just like time and time again coming up, I've just heard like you win the morning, you win the day. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the morning thing is gonna turn into like the North American like thing, you know, where it's like
Yep.
more things, more amazing things to add to my morning routine. You know?
Yeah. Like how many things can I collect in my routine, right?
Right. Yeah. And I've definitely experimented with every different thing in the morning. Like I think that they're just what I was writing. I was writing on my, I got a big old whiteboard right here. And what I was writing on it the other day was just that, like, I'm also just like, for better or for worse, like I love the concept of just a day. You know, it's like there's so much opportunity, there's so much you can do, but at the same time, you can't really do anything in a day, kind of. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like there's this interesting dichotomy where, like, you know, like if I check off a couple of those boxes where I meditate, I get some sun exposure, maybe some light movement, I journal, like if I like start stacking these things, have like a quiet cup of coffee, like I start stacking these things, I'm like feeling so good and so good. And I think so for me, it's an interesting thing because it's a line between like just being another type A exercise to complete and like, am I actually getting something out of this? You know, because, you know, it's like
Right.
sometimes you go like sometimes just getting through your workout, whether that's in the morning or the afternoon or whatever, just makes you feel accomplished, right? Rather than like really like focusing and dedicating and actually getting something out of it. Sometimes just making it through is good. And I think that sometimes like some of those morning autopilot things are good. And I noticed myself like battling with that a little bit, you know, and what I've been trying to do recently is just kind of like establish like some non-negotiables, right? Where these things that I just do every single day, for better or for worse, you know, and I just know that I'm going to feel better afterwards. Like no matter what I do, like as long as if I get a workout in, you know, depending on how, it doesn't have to be that good. Like I was saying a second ago, it's like, if I just get a workout in, I'm going to feel a little bit better about myself, you know? And I think, I don't know, sometimes I create this list of things that I'm like, it's like I'm stacking it against myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if I don't do these things, then I'm really going to not feel good about myself, which like,
Yeah.
I'm working on that a little bit myself.
Like, dude, totally. And then it defeats the purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah, I fall into that same trap sometimes, and yeah, that's why I've kind of like fine-tuned things to be like, you know, meditate. Yeah, like meditate and movement are my two main things that are pretty non-negotiables, and being outside, you know, like call it sun exposure, call it going for a walk, whatever.
Grounding.
Those are, yeah, grounding, yeah. Yeah, but
Earthing.
yeah, getting
No, but
them
honestly,
positive ions.
dude, that's really, really important, especially in just this device-driven world, you know? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, now more than ever, like during the quarantine, I'm realizing, because everything is just happening on computers and phones and whatever, because you just can't be in the physical. And it's like, and sometimes I'm just realizing, I'm going, damn, like we're more connected than we've ever been. You know what I mean? Like I think on First Insight, we were like, oh, we're going to be disconnected or whatever. But it's like, no, we're actually going to be way more connected. And we have to deal
but
with that.
it's a different kind of connection. And, you know, if you're not careful, then I think it just essentially like stimulates you too much. Like it stimulates like you know, this like, this being in your kind of like sympathetic nervous system, but for no reason type
Right.
of thing, you
Right.
know, like when you're consuming too much media, like social media or any type of media, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, so I mean, because I'm running a business online, like I'm constantly battling with that every day of, you know, like I get my mornings down, but my mornings are the easy part. Then the afternoon comes, and I like, that's when I'll usually like got to do my social media stuff, and I could get sucked into a hole. And when I get sucked into a hole, like I feel terrible. It's like the morning,
Oh,
like had no, you know what I mean? Like the
right.
morning was a waste. It didn't matter, kind of thing. So yeah, man, it's like really important to just check that. And I think like coming up with some systems for yourself is really nice, you know, to just have like, all right, like this is my hour that I'm going to use on Instagram, and I'm going to like answer people, or I'm just going to surf and like check out cool things or whatever. But then just like hold yourself to that, and like, then like, okay, it's past that hour. I can't touch it anymore, and I
It's
think it's
tough.
important.
It's
Yeah,
so
it
tough. I
is.
mean,
It's
dude,
really tough.
I battle with social media so much. I've had like,
Yeah.
because I just think it's the great experiment of our generation. Like, I
Mm,
think that like, and I love to talk to people about it. It's like one of my favorite topics. Like, what is your
yeah.
relationship with Instagram like? You know what I mean? Because
Right.
it's like
Right.
essentially this like alter ego that we've created for ourselves. But at the same time, it's like a slot
Mm,
machine that we're like constantly refreshing. We're constantly like, it's also like a dating site, and it's like everyone's using it to grow their businesses. And the way they designed it is like the most addictive thing of all time. Like like these are such uncharted territories. People want to talk about
yeah.
coronavirus, but like let's talk about like the last decade of like literally us all now all of a sudden we're like glued to our devices. Do
Right.
you have any, like, you seem pretty balanced, like do you have any like you mentioned creating boundaries and stuff like that, but like what's your relationship with social media like how do you balance that?
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, on good days, I am balanced. And then on poor days, like, I'm not balanced. I think that's how everybody is, but I, I've done enough experiments with myself to know that, if I can stay off of it, then I generally just feel better, but it is such a powerful tool for connecting with friends, for, like building a business and a brand, so I'm also like extremely appreciative of it for that too. So it's like this, it's this double-edged sword. But yeah, I mean, like, I have someone that handles a lot of my Instagram stuff now for strength side, and that's been like really helpful in, just hiring like a contractor on Upwork. If anybody's interested in that, like, you
Oh,
can
dope.
hop on Upwork and hire people, and you can hire people from other parts of the world that are less expensive, but yeah, it's a really powerful tool. And yeah, I try to limit my exposure, and I try to, it's tough because I love being a fan of things, but I don't want to have so many things that I want to consume every single day. So there's probably a lot of things out there that I would be a fan of, but I limit myself in in what I consume, so yeah, dude, like, I don't, I mean, I wish I could like give, people like more advice on how to handle that, but I struggle with it just as much as you struggle with it. It sounds like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's tough. It's tough. Like,
I think taking the app off your phone can be super, like, don't delete your account, but just delete the app for like a day. Like, that's super helpful. You ever do that?
right. Yeah. No, I do that too. And people around me
Yeah.
will like tease me and make fun of me, but I'm like, dude, look at how much time you're spending on that. Like like you talk about not having time to do all these other things that you've quote unquote want to do, but you're spending
Yeah.
4 hours a day on Instagram. It's like, there it
Yeah.
is right there. Yeah. It's maybe 1 minute at a time. You're picking your phone up 100 times, and it's like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, when that's me, I'm like, this is just something that's like you can't manage what you don't measure, and it's something that's just
Mm.
like, I think everyone struggles with it, and it's whether they decide to like try to figure it out, you know what I mean? And the other thing I
Yes.
noticed too is like, I noticed that not a lot of creativity personally happens when I'm in the app. Like, when you think about a great Instagram post, like you've put some really cool, your Instagram is great. You share some really cool stuff. And I can tell that you're like, it's not like you're opening up the app, pressing the plus button, and then just, and maybe you are typing long form in the Instagram caption. I think what you're doing is you're thinking of something that's thought provoking. You're treating it as like, as if you were a writer, which I think
Dude,
is,
like, you make such a good point there, man. Like, I've never been on Instagram and then been like, oh, I'm inspired to like make this dope post or something. You know what I mean? And same with YouTube too. No, like, all of my posts, I either write down like hand form in my journal, or I'll write them down like on my computer. And then, like, when the time's right, I'll transfer it over onto Instagram or whatever. And that's the same thing like for my YouTube videos. The way I come up with ideas is always away from devices. It's like usually like in the morning while I'm journaling, or it's sometimes like while I'm exercising, training, you know, like when I'm like feeling good and in my body, that's when you go into creation mode versus consumer mode, you know. And like creation mode is a dope place to be, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
like it feels really good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's really, really cool. Um,
Yeah, man. IG, it's it can, yeah, I'm sure it's like, do you communicate with people through Instagram sometimes for like for what you do?
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So for a lot of years, I always just made the excuse that my Instagram consumption, like when people would be like, you're always on your phone or whatever. And a lot of it was like, I made the excuse that like, I think this was like early Instagram too, that it was just common. It was just like, oh, like I'm a music manager. I need to like know what's going on in the industry
Yeah, right.
and whatever. So it's like, I could make that excuse and people wouldn't argue with me. But when I think back about it, I was completely full of shit. And I think that like to a degree, yeah, could I like follow along with like what everyone is doing at all times? Yeah. Is that kind of relevant to what I do? Sometimes, you know what I mean? But I
Right.
don't know if it's like having me take a step back from like what's happening in the music industry and have some clarity that I can like help my art, guide my artists through whatever they're going through, or like even be creative and help with the creative process. So I think that I made that excuse for a lot of years, and then at some point I was just like it makes me feel stressed. It's just like kind of stressful, and it's
Yeah,
like it's not that important to know what's going on. You know what I mean? It's like, how is that
it really
helping you
isn't.
find your inner voice, or in my position as an artist manager, helping them tell their story and them,
Right.
like I don't really think it get, you know. So, and I think everybody at some point in time can make that excuse and stuff like that. And I still spend time, a lot of time on social media and stuff like that. And I've even done experiments where like I unfollow everybody, like even all my friends. Cause then you do the thing where you're like, I start following, I get up to 1,000 people that I'm following. And
Yeah.
then when you do want to spend like intentional time on it and either catch up with friends, find out what's going on in the industry or around the world, just interesting things, see creative stuff. Like you're
Right.
following 1,000 people. So you're just, the algorithm is just feeding you stuff. Right. And then, so I don't know. I've like, and then when you try to unfollow people, you're like, oh, I love this person and I love that person. I love this person. And I just realized like, in order to start from scratch, I have to just unfollow everybody and
Oh,
then figure out, you know, and then go add all my friends and stuff like that. And it's kind of a funny thing because there are people out there that are like definitely paying attention to that. And that was something that I was like, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I literally love all these people. And if me following, it's just like, it shouldn't create a weird divide in our relationship. But at the same
right.
time, it's like, well, it's just an interesting space. I think it's like I said, it's such an alter ego. It's just such a battle. And I think that it's funny to think about it like that too, though. It's like, it's actually not that serious, but
Yeah, yeah. It's a tricky thing, but yeah, when it all comes down to it, it's just like, dude, it's not that serious, man. It's
yeah.
like, delete your
Mhm.
account if you want, you know, like don't delete it, whatever.
Right. Right. Right.
But dude, I was gonna ask you also, I was interested in, you know, because like you are interested in these, I don't know if I'd say counterculture topics, but you know, just more of like these transformation, like you're really into growth and everything. And it being in the music industry and especially like hip hop and stuff, does that fit in there well, or is that very counter to like that, to your industry, you know, it's your group?
You know what? Like, I think that, I mean, hip hop is like definitely counterculture, you know?
Yeah,
So I think that
right.
the way hip hop is expressing itself in 2020 is different than it did in 2010. And every year it's just like the most evolving genre. And I think that that's why hip hop is the new quote unquote pop music, because it's the most relevant, it's the most topical, it's the biggest reflection of like culture, you know? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, so I think that there's like every little niche, but like are other like hip hop artists and managers like into all this other stuff that I'm into? Maybe not. Like, we'll find out. I think that this is kind of that. I'm probably going to unearth some of those like people who are like, bro, I'm super into fitness too, or I'm
Yeah.
into a fucking cold exposure and infrared
Yeah,
saunas
yeah, yeah,
too. And
yeah.
like, who
Yeah.
knows? But I think that to me, I think some of this stuff, it's like, I think that it's an important piece of the equation. So it's definitely worth a listen. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like Tim Ferriss, like discovering Tim Ferriss's podcast, like in 2014 or whenever, 15, like early on when I discovered that, like he brought so many interesting topics to the forefront to me that semi-related to the thing I was going for, which was like, maybe at the time was like when I was 21, like business success, and like I wanted to make $1 million, right? And that was
Mm-hmm.
so, maybe that was like the pillar, right? But then I'm realizing Tim Ferriss is like this dude who's been massively successful, and he's a successful author and a successful entrepreneur. But then he's also having these really widespread conversations that are like bringing up these other topics that are relevant, whether it be fitness, whether it be nutrition, whether it be emotional intelligence and spirituality and philosophy, and like all these other things that kind of like round out the human experience. And I think that,
Right.
to me, that's like really what's interesting. So it's like, if the vessel is
Yeah.
like, my audience is people who know me because I manage SuperDuperKyle, well, maybe this little sprinkle of, you know, strength side with Josh is like what they need to kind of like make their experience a little better, you know? So
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
We'll find out. I mean, here's the thing. You love hip hop and you do what you do. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
maybe it
100%.
will
Yeah.
become
Well, because
synonymous.
and it's like, I really like Big Sean, and he's like always talking about the alchemist and, 7 spiritual laws for success and stuff. And it always like makes me so happy, I'm like, dude,
Oh,
Big
dude,
Sean is so
same, bro,
dope.
same. You know
Yeah.
what's? I actually have a funny story too about Big Sean just recently. Well,
Oh, dude, I'd love to hear it. Hold on,
okay,
I'm gonna move really quick because my computer is about to die.
okay.
Do you know Big Sean, like, personally? Have you met
So
him?
I actually don't know him personally. I've definitely met him a handful of
Yeah.
times, probably, but I wouldn't say that I know him. I know a
Yeah.
couple dudes on his team, um, from just being in the game over the years. But yeah. So I've always loved that about Big Sean too. You know, like
Yeah.
how he like is definitely into, you know what I mean? And even finding out early on, he was like a Christian rapper and he was like really faith-based, like when he was a kid. I think that's really dope. And I think that he's like
That is
consistently
cool.
been like one of the freaking best MCs. Like,
Oh yeah, dude.
and he has an interesting story with Kyle and I too, because when I first started managing Kyle in like 2011, like one of the very first like opportunities I created for Kyle was to open up for Big Sean in Santa Barbara, California. And this was like
Oh.
really, really early Big Sean. This is like, maybe he had 2 mixtapes out. He didn't have a debut album out yet, but he was still like really popular. And he was one of Kyle's favorite artists at the time. And I
Oh
remember
wow.
I didn't even know Big Sean, but I like introduced Kyle to Big Sean when we were backstage. I just kind of like was like, oh yeah, Sean, this is KID, blah, blah, blah. And he like dapped him
Yeah.
up and stuff. And then after that, I
Yeah.
think that Kyle was like, man, yeah, like Nolan's like doing his thing for me. He's like helping me. He's like introducing me to his favorite artists. Well, it's
That's
funny
dope.
because since over the last couple of years, Kyle has like developed a relationship with Big Sean, you know, like ran into him a couple times, and Sean has like shown Kyle love and been like, told him like, I've been checking out what you're doing, like keep up the good work, blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
And
sick, dude.
so it's obviously, and it's kind of interesting because I think part of how Kyle is super duper Kyle is Big Sean. He put out this freestyle called Over the Lemonade beat. It was like a Gucci Mane beat. And then Kyle saw that on YouTube and then did this thing called Super Duper Lemonade. And then like literally Kyle was KID at the time and he became Super Duper Kyle because of Super Duper Lemonade, this video that Kyle did that kind of like went
Oh
viral.
shit.
So like, and then I think post that is when I got him the show with Big Sean. But then as time goes on, Kyle is starting to kind of like get his name in the game, get his name in the industry. And then, like more recently, so Kyle has had a relationship with Big Sean. There's been a couple ideas of songs that he sent to him. Obviously, it'd be like a dream of his for them to work together. And it's
Yeah.
funny because like randomly, and I don't want to like take any level of credit for this or like whatever. I think it's just the world conspiring. But like I watched this interview that Big Sean did recently, and like Kyle hadn't heard from Big Sean in like a while, and sometimes it's like the text messages go unheard, right? But go unresponded to. People are busy, whatever. But
Sure.
Big Sean did this like long form interview with like Joe Budden, and I
Oh,
watched.
dude, I started watching it. I still need to finish it.
Okay, yeah. So I watched that whole thing, and for whatever reason, my response to watching that whole thing was like, I think Big Sean is in a headspace where he would be receptive to Kyle, like sending him a note.
Yeah.
So I literally text Kyle, or I call Kyle the next morning. I'm like, yo, dude, I think you should call Big Sean. And he's like, oh, I don't know, bro. And I was like, bro, I watched this interview with him last night, and it just like seems like his mental is in like the space where he'd be receptive to like you. And so I said that. And then like literally Kyle calls me, I want to say like the next day, and was like, bro, I was over at Big Sean's house last night. Like he was playing me his new album. I was playing him his new album.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Dude,
And so,
that is
and then
so crazy.
yeah. And so like, you know, it's like, granted, like it has very little to do with me and everything to do with like Kyle and him just being an incredible artist and stuff. But just like sometimes like, and I've always felt that about Sean too. Like, I feel like he's like super like, you know, in touch spiritual dude. And like, you know what I mean? And like, I think that we go through our phases where like sometimes we're super open to the world and possibilities of what's going on around us. And sometimes we're like a little more closed off and like locked in on whatever it is the project that we're working on is. And I think that like, especially creative people, you know, it's like, you know, I've spent a lot of time myself in and out of those different flows and stuff like that. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
No, dude, I mean, I think I know like you're a humble dude. You're not going to take credit for it, but I mean, you were in the space to like receive Big Sean and to be like, huh, I'm sensing like his energy is in this place where like we should reach out, you know? And like, I think that's super important, is surrounding yourself with people who are, you know, like just being aware of like their energy and you know, and what's going on around them and stuff. And dude, that's so cool, man. That's such a sick story.
Right. Yeah. And the cool thing, I think the thing about it for me too, is just like hearing how, like, cause Kyle told the story recently on something he was doing, and how just it was one of those moments where he was in Big Sean's studio with Big Sean playing Kyle's new music, and Big Sean was jamming to it going like, this shit is crazy. And he was like, that is like one of those moments. Like Kyle's done a lot of really cool stuff in his career so far, but he was like, that was one of those moments where I was like, you're like my favorite dude. And you like, you know what I'm saying? So I think just those moments, it's like, I'm getting chills. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because like from my side, it's like in 2011, when I got Kyle that show, it brought a similar feeling. And then for even that to kind of have this more full circle thing, it's like, those are the little things that like really like make this thing worth doing it. You know, there's little moments like that, but yeah, man.
100%, dude. Is it, I mean, do you mind if we talk like about this kind of stuff, like the
No.
industry and everything?
Honestly,
Okay.
bro, like the way I've been kind of doing this is just that, like, if we need to edit in post, we do that. Like, but yeah,
For
I
sure.
want to be careful about how I approach certain things, but I just, you know, I love
Yeah,
talking.
I mean, I was just and if you need to edit anything out, but I was just curious about, you know, like artists doing collaborations. Is that like a tricky thing to navigate because of the labels and everything, or is it just like, yo, let's put out a song?
Yeah, dude, it is.
Yeah.
It's super tricky. And I think what I always say is the best way that it gets done always is artist to artist, you know?
Yeah.
When you're a new artist and you haven't established yourself, and obviously the dream is to collaborate with your favorite artists in the industry or other people who are like just super successful that you know are going to be like helpful in like getting your career off the ground and just like making an amazing track. Like it's a difficult thing because there's just a lot of moving parts, right? So there's the there's the element of like money, you know, so you can, you know, when you're with a record label, you have a budget to work with in order to make your music, right? So sometimes you can dangle the money carrot, right? You can go, hey, so-and-so, or you can have the management reach out, or the lawyer reach out, or the label reach out, or you can go artist to artist and you can say, hey, so-and-so, we have X amount of dollars. Would you be willing to hop on our song? We think you would sound great on it. Because that's how you think a lot of times, especially when we're making music, we're always thinking about who would sound dope on this record if it was going to be a collaboration, right? And then and as you know, it's like collaboration is such a hip hop thing, and it's such a way that like it just exposes you to new audiences, all of that stuff. There's so many beautiful things about it, but like, and sometimes it's like, I don't know, like sometimes the money carrot will get you the collab, you know what I mean? Sure. But what I've noticed is, and then being on both sides of those things where we're like, hey, 2 Chainz, you want to hop on this Kyle song? And he's like, sure, it's going to be X, you know what I mean? Or his team is like, sure, it's going to be X amount of dollars, you know what I mean? And there's absolutely, it's strictly transactional. There's that. But then yeah, there's like the always the most fluid way to get stuff done is like building just genuine relationship. You know what I mean? Yeah, and like, and then like on the back end, it's like a lot of these artists are signed to record labels. So the record labels also have motives. So like the artist might go agree, like, I'm going to do this record for you. Cool. Maybe even for free. But then you have to contact the team, the legal, their record label, you know, and clear it with them. And they, because the thing is the labels actually own the likeness to these artists. So it's like, that sounds really aggressive to say and crazy to say, because I would never want to say that about us. But like, if our record label really wanted to get in the middle of something that we were doing, they could just be like, yeah, no, that's not going to come out, you know? Granted, labels don't really operate like that, but for the most part, they do their best to stay in sync with us on the artist side of things. But yeah, sometimes, I mean, we've reached some sticky points where like the label just didn't want to clear a song that we wanted to put out, you know? And so it's like, that can be really, really frustrating. The business side of things can definitely be frustrating, but you know, it's funny because I think, and I'm sure you experience it in your business as well, is like, you can kind of, there is a level, like there's a type of video, you know, you can make that's going to perform at a certain thing, but is it the medicine that you feel like your audience needs, or is it and I think that there's so many parallels in the music industry to stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like there's artists that know like this type of song will be super successful, but like maybe like what I want, the medicine I want to give, or the thing that I want to share is better being this way, you know, or whatever.
Absolutely, man. It's like the artist dilemma, you know, and I could only imagine on like a stage like that it's really challenging. I mean, for me, like, you know, just have my little YouTube channel, but it's like, yeah, you can make a video that's gonna like attract the masses, or like I can share something that like I really think will affect someone, or, you know, like someone can relate to, you know. And it's I guess like the best artists can kind of blend those a little bit.
And honestly, it's such an interesting topic of conversation, because it's the difference between going wide to an audience or going deep with an audience.
Yeah.
And I think that as a manager, that's one thing that I've kind of seen from being in, like Kyle being an independent artist to like him having like massive mainstream success, you know what I mean? And then kind of like have it, like, it's weird because perception is reality in a lot of respects when it comes to stuff like that. So it's like, you know, and I think that
what do you mean by that? Perception is reality?
Perception is reality. And like when you've had massive mainstream success and then your audience gets like bumped up to like a mainstream radio audience, or like then they just expect that everything you do from that point forward is going to be like a smash hit song. And maybe that's not like your current truth, you know what I mean? Or whatever. It's like, or that's just like not the, like, and then once you do one thing that's massively successful, everybody is just like, well, why wouldn't you just keep doing that again? You know what I mean? Like, for example, like Kyle's song I Spy in 2017 was like one of the biggest streaming songs of the year, you know? And like #1 at Rhythm Radio. It was like, and so like presumptively everyone is just going, we'll just do that or something that sounds like that a bunch of times over again. And it was like, every indication was just like, why would we do that again? We just did that. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah.
But at the same time, from the business perspective, you're going, oh yeah, it kind of does make sense. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things.
Really tough, man. And then like, from my perspective, like being a fan of Kyle, I'm like, that song's not my favorite. You know what I mean? Like I'm more into the, like, I don't know, his shit that's probably not that popular, you know? So it's like these, like developing a cult following, I think is pretty cool. You know, like I've always been a fan of Kid Cudi too. And he doesn't have like the massive following, but like people ride or die for Cudi, you know? And, it's it's really interesting.
Yeah. Have you kind of seen that materialize in your content at all?
Yeah, 100%, you know, like, because like I have a variety of, I mean, in my industry, I think like best business practice would be like really just dialing in on a niche, you know, and then like just really just going after that niche. I think that's the best way to build a business. Whereas like, if you're just like being this big fitness company who's like, we do like videos on burning fat, we also do like bodybuilding, we also do like powerlifting, like, then you're getting like all these touch points, but how is like, nobody's really like resonating with you on like a deeper level. Do you know what I mean? So because I do have like a bit of variety on my channel, I think sometimes people come in and then they're like, why is this dude like talking about all this philosophical stuff? You know what I mean? Like, that's not that, like, I wanted to learn about like solving my knee pain. That's not like why I'm here. But you know, that kind of weeds people out. And like, I'm trying to now more so just stick to like my message and the stuff that I want to share. And, you know, like, that might not attract the masses, but it's cooler, I think, when you have like just people that are just there for your message.
Right. Okay, I got a question from our boy Tim Ferriss. Really, I'm borrowing this from what he asks his podcast guests. But but he asks, what is your favorite failure? Meaning, like, what is like a thing that I think you get it.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, let me think for a sec, because I have quite a few.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of like blend these two failures, and I mean, it just goes right along with like my business and what we're doing now. Is I had a YouTube channel when I was in college, and it was like, I would be so embarrassed for anybody to see it now, you know, and it was just like me kind of like vlogging my gym workouts and just kind of being goofy and stuff. And but what I now understand was it was like a creative outlet for me. You know, I was trying to do something, and like I said, like, it would be embarrassing to me now, but it was a failure that made me realize, like, once I become kind of like more just more like aged as a person with a little bit more valuable information to spread, like I can do this thing, you know? It's not, sometimes you see these people that are big on YouTube, or like the big podcasters like Tim Ferriss, or you know, I'm working with this guy named Mike Bledsoe now, and he's like a kind of a leader in the business side of the fitness industry. And like, it's like these dudes who you, in your mind, you build them up so much, and then you realize like these are all just people. They're all just normal people who just started. And you know, it's like our conversation earlier, just started being consistent and just developing practices, developing rituals to keep them going. And you just learn along the way, you know, and that's what having, it was called Ball So Hard Fitness.
So fire. So fire.
Yeah. And
So
yeah, man, like that, I love that failure, you know. And honestly, like I used to have a podcast too, a strength side podcast, when I first started strength side like 6 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was me and my brother, and it was complete shit, you know. But and it's like, not, you can't find it anymore. But
You deleted it?
yeah, I deleted it. But it, like, same thing, like just taught me a lot about like, okay, I can do this, but I need to be in a better place in my life to be able to share. And it also, like, in just more of like a technical, like practical sense, it highlighted a lot of as I stumble on my words, it like taught me that when I speak, I just need to be direct and say what I want to say. And, you know, I can fumble around a lot and stuff like that. So it just kind of got me, oh, okay, like let's communicating is like a valuable piece in this business that we're in, you know.
Dude, that's so cool and interesting to me too, because that's what I've been noticing recently. Like, I think what a lot of the resistance was for me in starting this podcast was like, how am I, like, it's like vain things, like how am I going to look or sound, or people going to think I'm stupid or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? There's just these like this fear that rises up. And I think finding your voice on social media is fucking hard. And that's why I think that it's hard and it's scary, because the only way to do it, and this is why I love Gary Vee's content, is because he's just constantly reminding yourself to just like do it and fail and fail and fail and fail. And he's like, his whole thing is like, I'm giving you permission to do it. And he just is like challenging you to like, he's always just talking about like, turn the camera on your face and say what you got to say. You know what I mean? And that shit is terrifying, dude. Terrifying.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's interesting because like what like nudged me to start this podcast was also like, all my excuses were gone when like the pandemic happened. It's like, we're going to be in our house. Like, it gave me the right amount of constraints to start. Like, you can't overthink about how you're going to interview the guests, whether it's going to be in person, whether it's just going to be audio. Like, there's literally one way to do it, and it's just like this. You know what I mean? So I was staring it right in the face, and I'm kind of going, this is what I got to do. Like, am I going to puss out, or am I going to step up to the plate and fail and figure it out? And so I think that's really, really cool, you know? And I think what's interesting about what you said about Ball So Hard Fitness is, even though that's so fire, like I can just think of like just some fire merch for that already. But like what you were doing was you were kind of finding your voice. And that's the one thing that I've realized that like about all of this was, because there was other fears in starting this podcast as well. Like, I wanted to be really careful about the things that I talk about, you know what I mean? Especially dealing with artists and like the depth at which I can go in and out of that. And here's the thing, the God honest truth is, I don't know what the boundaries are in that. I'm going to use my best judgment, and I'm going to use discretion, and I'm going to like literally do my best with it. But then I think part of finding your voice is you have to face your truth to a degree of going like, am I like full of shit? Is the message I'm spreading worth spreading? You know what I mean? And like, I think everybody would probably look back on their previous self 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? I think you'd probably look back on that content and be like, oh, that's silly. And then maybe a few years from now, I'm going to look back on this content and be like, you didn't know what you're doing. And, you know, and I think the intentionality is really important in it. But like, what you're saying is interesting, but I think what you were doing with Ball So Hard was you were turning the camera on yourself and you were finding that voice through trial and error. And I think that is such a, in all of this, that is such a powerful lesson that I'm just trying to scratch the surface and try myself, you know? And I think literally the difference between, like, if I wanted to mimic a video that you were making, like, you literally have thousands of hours of like flipping the record button and speaking your truth to the camera and sounding silly and fumbling over words and doing all of the things that have gotten you to the point where you're at now. And I think that that's just like a case for just like starting that thing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, man. Just starting. Yeah. And it's a lot of people have reached out to me recently, and they're starting their own YouTube channel or whatever it is, and a lot of people just ask, like, how do you get over the self-doubt? Like, how do you get over the voice in your head? And after I got this question like 5 times, I started like really putting some thought there, and I was like, oh, you know what, like, it doesn't go away. Like, it's still there. Whenever I create content, I'm always like, damn, like, I don't know, like, this is a little wild. I don't know if people are going to resonate with this, but you train that skill of just like, sidestepping that voice in your head, and just like, I know now I've just had a lot of experience of doubting myself, but then doing the thing and nothing bad happening,
Right.
So
right.
you get better and better at doing that, and you just like gain that. It's like a muscle. You just train that muscle, and eventually it seems like you don't have as much self-doubt. It seems like you have high self-esteem, but maybe you still do doubt yourself like I do, but just overcome it. Just keep on overcoming it.
Right.
It's like a fake it till you make it mentality, kind of.
Right. Yeah, and that they say that that courage isn't the absence of fear. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
Absolutely.
it's like, it's not the absence of fear, that it's feeling the fear and doing it anyways, And
Yeah.
fear is an interesting thing in itself too. But what would you say too about for any like young YouTube creators and even completely outside of like fitness and like whatever vloggers, like,
Yeah.
what would you say about dealing with critics and comments and silly things? Because as we all know how the human mind works, it can just like grab that, understand the tiny bit of truth that may be perceived in that, and then it just like can ruin your day and like cause you like all kinds of crazy self-doubt and like stuff like that. And here's the thing, when the channel snowballs and gets to the point where you have 250,000 subscribers, well, now it's not like your little like friend group anymore. Now it's like, it's for everybody, you know what I mean? And I just have some people who are really close to me that I, artists deal with this in the music industry. Like, they might get one comment about one thing, and literally they'll like, that will be the basis of our next conversation. And I'm like, well, what about the 1,000 other people that said otherwise? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
dude, I cause like, when I listen to more popular people on podcasts, and they talk about this, like that, that one negative comment, like, and then your mind just erases all those thousands of good comments, and you just fixate on that. And dude, I've had these experiences. Like, I've had days ruined by one YouTube comment, and it's a real thing. And my suggestion, how I've dealt with it actually is it, like, it kind of seems a little spiritual hippie, but I feel like when someone is willing to reach out to you with a negative comment, with anything negative in general, that they're not in a good place. You know what I mean? Like, they're not doing well. And I now can see that. And like, it's taken me a long time to get to this point, but now I give them love, man. I'm like, yo, like, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that like that's the place that you're in, that you want to like spread like negativity on my channel when I've never done anything to you, like, and I just try to just be compassionate towards them. And just, and that doesn't mean like, I usually tried not to reply back, because, my first instinct would be like, reply back, argue or something. But yeah, just take a second, pause, get yourself in a good place where you're like, man, you know, love for this person, and then move on.
Yeah, I like that. That's really, really powerful right there. And I think for me, it's like, it's easy to like take that stance from the outside looking in, but like to actually be in that arena is a different thing. So I'm curious to try to do that a little bit, to expose myself to that a little bit. You know, I think
It's so hard, dude, and it'll reflect back to you what type of state that you're in. That's what I find out for myself, anyways.
Ooh.
Is if I'm in a good place, if I just meditated or if I just had a good movement session, it won't affect me very much. If I'm in like a stimulated place, I've been on Instagram too long, and then I see this comment, then I'm like, yo, like I'm coming up with all these responses in my head and stuff, you know? So it's
Wow. Wow. That's even
right.
crazier. Cause you're
Uh-huh.
like, if you clap back at them, now that's a reflection of the state you're in. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
whatever,
And
however you
I've literally
respond.
clapped back and then deleted my comment because I was like, no, I don't want to be in that place, you know?
Right. Right. Dude. Wow.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
this has been amazing, dude. Thank you so much for your time. You asked me a few questions. That was cool.
Oh yeah, man. I like, dude, you're like doing such cool stuff, man. I wanna I could probably ask you a bunch more.
Right.
How's
Right.
Kyle doing right now?
He's doing great, man. He's doing really, really
Yeah.
good. Like,
Are you guys
um,
releasing the album?
yeah, we're gonna figure out how to get it out for sure. We're gonna
Yeah.
figure out how to get it out. Like, it caused us to have to kind of like fully change our plan, you know. And then now with, it's just taken, you know what I mean? It's taken this month to figure out like what's actually gonna happen. You know, what does this actually mean long term? Because I
Yeah.
think there's not gonna be any live touring. It sounds like until like 2021, right?
Dude, that's wild.
So like, you know, as someone who's, you know, a live touring artist, and that's like something that not only does he really love, but that's important when you're like releasing an album, and like
Yeah.
that's a lot of the plan is hinged on that. So but like I said, again, it's one of those things where sometimes the right amount of constraints like is the right amount of limitations is perfect to like actually take action, you
Yep.
know? Like I
Yep.
think now Kyle and I are happier and more confident in our plan in releasing this album than we were even prior to the thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's like less expensive videos, it's less certainty, it's less,
Right.
so I think that, yeah, I don't know. And it's funny because him and I went back and forth a lot about it because we were discouraged for the first, like, I want to say 3 weeks of the quarantine. I know, like, we were discouraged. You know what I mean? We were like,
For sure.
this sucks. Like, especially
Yeah.
him. He had been, like, literally took it in a year off to, like, make this body of work, you know? And so thinking, like, now's my time. And here's the thing, like,
Yeah.
to me, during the quarantine, I think whenever you start to feel sorry for yourself, to just think about, I mean, you could even be specific about one person in your life who this is affecting not only more than you, but like there's just so many people out there. Like we're so blessed. Like it's unreal,
Yeah.
right? It's unreal.
Yeah.
Like it's not even, you know, if I'm being like practical, I mean, if I'm just being fair, it's like I should never say anything ever. But here's the thing,
Right.
this thing is affecting us all in different ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I've looked at a lot of other artists who were like scorching hot, like about to have their moment, you know? And then it's just,
Yeah.
and
Oh
so that, I
man.
think, you know, even for us, it's like we were about to like get back out there and get back into it and release, you know, new music. And then all
Yeah.
we had to do was re-strategize. But some of these people were like, no, dude, like I have a hit song right now. I was about to go tour the world and like,
Oh
like
man.
I was about to launch into the stratosphere, you know what I mean? And so like
Yeah.
for this to kind of like quell that moment, it's like I have a lot of, you know, just in my little world, in my little music world. And then there's always all the people over there, because it's like, dude, this virus is no joke. You know what I mean? It's killing people. It's killing loved ones. It's, you know, it's, things aren't going to be the same after this. And I think that's a good thing in a lot of respects, but nobody said it was going to be easy. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, I really like what you said about just like working with the restraints, and maybe the restraints actually improving what you're doing sometimes, you know, like,
Right.
for me, I was, dude, when the quarantine hit, I was supposed to like be on a flight to Europe with my girlfriend, and we were going to travel around Europe for like 4 months. And I was actually about to take some time off from doing that much work and just kind of like do YouTube videos for a while. But this thing hit, we couldn't go to Europe, and we ended up like releasing an online program to give people like a little bit more of these home workout, follow along type things. And yeah, so like just tried to roll with the punches. But yeah, like, of course I was super disappointed I couldn't go to Europe, you know.
Dude, that sounds like a big trip too. Like you've been planning that probably for what, 6 months?
For a while, yeah,
Yeah.
for a while. And we just had like a lot of like, and it was gonna be like, I was gonna just be like, yo, I'm gonna enjoy my life for a little bit. I'm gonna work a little bit less than I've been working for like the last 6 months and stuff. And then things just went total opposite, you know. But I don't know, like, I'm having fun, and I'm trying to have fun. And yeah, it's tough, man. It's so tough when there's uncertainty, you know.
Right. Right. Talk a little bit about like what you have going on. I mean, like I bought the Move Strong Now program. Like I've been loving that. I haven't been as consistent as I need to be and I'd like to be, but like I've definitely been like working through all the stuff and I've been feeling better. But yeah, just I guess this is the time to just drop a couple plugs in there.
Sure. Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're interested in what we do, come over to YouTube, see if you enjoy our stuff. And I do, like I said, there's a variety, but lately it's been a lot of follow along routines that you can do like right with me, because everybody's at home, and people are enjoying that stuff right now. And we and I kind of I blend a lot of different things. So a lot of my workouts, people usually say they're a lot different than anything they've done, and that they enjoy that, you know. And yeah, we have the Move Strong Now program, which is, it's like a 90-day strength and mobility program for just developing your body, you know, freeing up your body, getting stronger, all that good stuff. And then we have the program I was just referring to called Guided. And that's a follow along program. And it's all about just like feeling good on the daily, you know. And that's kind of like a place that I've tried to step into with a lot of my content lately, is just like, yo, let's just feel good. Let's feel good from fitness. A lot of people have a weird relationship with fitness. Like, you think you need to do these things in order to get X, Y, and Z. And that is one way that you can approach fitness, but you can also think of it as just moving your body and like trying to feel good in your body, you know. And I know you're into yoga, and that's why a lot of people love yoga, because, you know, there's not necessarily a into the means, you know. It's more so like, let's be in our body, let's be here, and let's experience this movement. And I find that really valuable for most people.
Right. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Yeah, no, all your YouTube, why I was so stoked to do this is I'm just a fan, you know what I mean? And I'm like, it's dope to be able to call you a friend now.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, your content is amazing. It's helped me a lot. You know, you put out an interesting Instagram post recently that I just found to be so true. Just talking about how like fitness, just talking about fitness goals, really. You were talking about nutrition and how it all kind of wraps up. And it's like, there's a lot of different, like, there's so much information and so much content out there about it that like you can get super, super scientific with it. You know what I mean? But like what you just said about feeling good in your body, I think is really like the ethos of it, you know? And I think I notice for myself, it's like having, whether it's like a consistent yoga practice or like, you know, I've done a little bit of everything, where I was like, when I was 21, I was super into just trying to get swole, you know? And I'm just noticing though that like yoga kind of has taught me a lot to like slow down, focus on your breath, but also feel good in your body and really be aware of just small details of like even your foot strike. That's something that I notice. Like I'll notice that on like other people. I'll be like, oh, like they're like pronating or they're like whatever. And I'm noticing how like, you know, the body's just obviously so the information is so vast and it's just so interesting. But I think, yeah, like your perspective on it has just really opened up my world to just a different way of approaching it. And so I just want to thank you for that and like commend you, bro.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Thank you for reaching out to me. And yeah, I'm glad we've, you know, became buddies, and I hope we could do some stuff in person one of these days, you know?
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
Oh, dude, what I was gonna actually, here's a little. I wanted to just mention this really quick. For what you were talking about, like with that post and everything, was I think a good, like if somebody wanted to do this, write down a goal. So maybe your goal is like I want to have bigger biceps, but then you have to say because, right? So I want to have bigger biceps because, and then we get into interesting territory, like because that will attract girls. And then take it a step further and then ask yourself, why do you want to attract girls? And then maybe we're getting to a place of, because like I want to feel more self-worth, you know, or like I want to feel more valuable. And then we get to like the real emotion, what's behind that goal, you know, like you can always dig deeper into these things. Then you realize like, oh, maybe the bigger biceps isn't the way to get to like my goal of feeling more self-worth. Like maybe there's a better way to get there, you know?
Wow. That's such a bar. Thank you for that. That's such a bar. I'm going to practice that immediately. Do you have any like specific goal setting practices? That's something that I want to be more specific about. Like I would consider myself to be goal oriented, but I look around my space. I don't have any clear writing. Sometimes I feel like I'm not specific enough. Is there a way I can be more specific with my goal setting?
That's I'd recommend looking into, I forget what the course is called, but it's Jordan Peterson's course on goal setting. And it's like, it's really inexpensive. It's, I don't know. The last time I looked, I think it was like $20 or something. But yeah, it takes you deep into setting like more specific goals and digging into like why those are your goals and stuff like that, you know? Because yeah, it's like goal setting it can kind of sound like a cheesy or a corny thing, you know, like write down your goals. Like, you know, that's what like maybe your teachers told you to do or something, but it is the practice of getting like a lot more clarity on what you actually want. Cause a lot of the time what's running through our minds, what I found is that I'm like saying that I want things that is more so put there by society. It's put there by like maybe some goals that my parents had for me, you know, it's like a lot of past shit. And when you write stuff down a lot, then you get more clear on like, what does this guy want? Like, what does this guy need to feel good, you know? And that's powerful.
Wow. Right. Man, I feel like I mean, how are you doing on time? Do you have a couple more minutes? Because I kind of want to go into just your self-education really quick. Do you have a minute or two?
Yeah. Let's do it. I'm good, man. I'm enjoying talking to you.
Okay, cool. I don't have anything right now, and I'm like realizing like it's fun to just keep it rocking. So you mentioned your coach, right? And I would consider you a coach to a degree, you know, and I've heard the term every coach needs a coach.
Hell yeah.
I've noticed my coaches in my life. My dad was one of my coaches. I have such the love for all of my coaches, whether I hated them at the time or whether I loved them. Like I look back in retrospect, like, wow, I learned so much from that person. Talk a little bit about, like, you mentioned you having a coach. Like you seem like a coach to me, but you need a coach.
Yeah. Oh man, I love this topic because like I mentioned, I grew up playing sports and I had a lot of coaches, and I don't think I really understood how much those coaches helped me and affected me until I was, maybe in my mid-20s. And then like I I ended up hiring a coach to work with, like physically, like for training and exercise. And I was like, my biggest regret is that I didn't hire a coach earlier. Like there's people out there that have done things that you want to get to, and they can lead you there so much faster than you can get there on your own, and to have a objective point of view rather than like you looking at yourself is so important, man. So important. And I really believe in having mentors, having guides, having teachers. And yeah, so for physical fitness, I've had a coach for the last like 5 to 6 years now, probably 6 years. Yeah. And then I also have a business coach. I also work with some people that are, helping me learn business more, because that's something that I definitely don't know, and it's like, so yeah. So then I think the big point of all of this is investing in yourself is putting like a really good energy into the world, like you're saying that you are valuable enough to like invest this money into you getting better at this thing,
Wow.
I think I think it's really underestimated, or maybe like underused or whatever, like not talked about so much. But consistently I see like the people that I want to be around are investing a lot of money into their work, into them getting better, and I've never spent money and been like, that was a complete waste of money. Like I always get something out of whatever I'm doing. And over time, like I just want to spend more and more money because I know that it's all going to come back to me,
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think that so the word coach, I think, is interesting versus mentor, right? Because I think a coach is almost like you're paying someone to do this. You're putting the money up, and it's like a transaction. Whereas like a mentor is like they've like, donated their time to you and are like agreeing to guide you. And I have some people I consider mentors. I currently don't have a coach. And I like what you said is like inspiring. And that's like, in theory, I agree with that. I want to, figure out how I can, how did that relationship with your coach start?
Well, okay, let's see. I've worked with a few different coaches over the year, and then my current coach, for my training, his name is Will Brown. I was kind of like moving out of a different relationship with a different coach because I thought it was time to move on. And he was just someone that I had been following on Instagram for a while. And I just like loved his material, and it was almost like us meeting, I was just like, dude, like this guy is super cool. I'm just going to reach out, see if he does coaching. And he was like, yeah, man, I do. And it just kind of like the timing worked out perfectly because he had one more slot open. And then, yeah, I started working with him, and it was just like, dude, like it felt so good, like it just felt like this is the place that I want to be in, like this relationship and this little community of like the people that he's coaching and stuff. Yeah. And so like, I think that that's also super important, is that like, maybe you won't find your coach on the first try,
Right.
but you're going to learn from whatever experience you go through. Right. And you're going to get good stuff out of anything, out of any coaching experience. You may ultimately find that you and this coach don't connect as well as you would like, and you want to like move on to something else. But again, It's like starting the practice. You don't need to be perfect on the first try.
Right.
What like if you were going to hire a coach, what would it be in?
Dude, well, you just kind of like outlined two things that are obviously important. It's like movement and business. I think like
those are big ones.
I have my mentor, Ryan Leslie.
Your mentor is Ryan Leslie?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah, you know him? Are you familiar?
Arles?
Yeah.
Arles for Prez?
Arles for Prez. He's been just so instrumental in my life in so many avenues. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
His understanding of finance is so brilliant, and like investing is like
He's like a
otherworldly.
mogul, right?
Dude, yeah. And the thing is though, is like no one would know. And it's funny how like our relationship kind of developed, and like it's funny because like when I ask him why he is even like, I don't even really know why he's down to mentor me. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where we just like we like clicked, and I just call him a mentor just because of like how much I've learned from him. It's like we're not necessarily equally yoked. You know what I mean? Like in the relationship, not like we like share the like I mean, I think he probably appreciates my enthusiasm and like my genuine like curiosity and how much I take what he says into practice. But like at the end of the day, he's, you know what I mean? He's like smarter than me in a lot of the topics that we usually like discuss. But yeah, like I think being specific in the like thinking about ways to invest in yourself, I think is just overall really, really powerful. Like for me, I think the first understanding I had of that was just like buying books. Like when I first got into the music industry, I literally like, it was definitely a different culture back then. It wasn't so like podcast and YouTube and like where you could get this information easy that way. It was always like, there was like books, there was text on it. And so I remember even really early on in Tim Ferriss's podcast where he said that his parents, like part of his development was his parents were always willing to like, they didn't have a lot of money, but they were willing to like buy him books, you know? And I kind of thought about it from my own standpoint. I was kind of like, well, like regardless, like I need to be the same way with myself. And I've heard the same from Ryan Holiday, where he was basically saying like, he doesn't let money be an issue if there's a book that he sees and he's genuinely interested in. So yeah, I just collect stacks of books, you know, and I've done the courses and just different like mastermind stuff from time to time. But I think, I do think that there's something to be said about just accountability. I think that that's what's cool about fitness and training, and even some of the stuff that you're doing online via YouTube and via your programs. That's great. But I also think that there's like a world where like doing this, you know what I mean? Like, do you have a coaching program? Maybe you should just be my coach, bro.
Yeah, man, maybe. I kind of stepped away from doing one-on-one coaching just because like I was trying to put my time into building programs that would be easier to like affect a lot of people, you know? But there's no replacement for that one-on-one relationship, you know? But I love what you said about the books. Like that was my first way of investing in myself too, was just like, you know, back when I didn't have any money, but I'm like, yo, I'm going to buy like these 3 books. That's going to be like $40. And, you know, I'm investing, you know, and, dude, it's so powerful. And what you were saying with you and Ryan Leslie is also really powerful, because I think it just like highlights that, you know, he probably enjoys your relationship because you're interested, you know, and there's a lot of people that I interact with that want to ask me questions, but then it's like, they don't really care about the answer that much, you know? But when I talk with someone that actually like cares about what I'm saying, and, you know, like it's like our conversation right now, when someone's really interested and wants to dive deeper, like then you want to give this information for free. You know what I mean? You want to be a mentor or whatever.
Right.
That's a really like, that's a good thing to note. If you're like a young entrepreneur out there, like just go be interested.
Yeah, no, totally. And I've noticed it just even in my, you know, position where I'm at now. I like feeling like having such a great mentor in Ryan that like I realize like, damn, I want to pass the rope back. So like part of this content is doing that, but hopefully it creates a community around people where I can like mentor people and or coach people and or just do more of that, because I know that like when I really think about how fortunate I am to have a great mentor, I think about like, damn, how can I continue this? How can I pay it forward? You know what I mean? And how can I like, I feel like it's a responsibility, you know? So
yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. it's funny, man. Like, I'm such a big fan of all of Ryan Leslie's work with Fabulous, you know, and
Yeah.
I have a really good buddy from high school that he was like, he's like Ryan Leslie's like biggest fan, and he would go to the meetups whenever Ryan Leslie would have like a meetup in San Francisco and stuff, and
Oh, dope.
uh, yeah, I went with him one time, and I got to meet Ryan Leslie. Actually, it was really dope. But
Oh,
dude,
that's
he just
dope.
seemed like such a high level dude, and I I just from following him on Instagram, like I see that there's so much more behind what he's doing. I mean, is he even like currently putting out music?
Yeah, not as much. So what he's building is, Ryan is just like such a futurist, dude. Like he's, there are so many things that he's done in his career that has like established him as just someone who is just like way ahead of the curve. And his most recent
Right.
thing is communication. And he basically built this platform called Superphone that basically, it's essentially like smart messaging, and it kind of tracks your messaging and your conversations as if it was like a Fitbit. It's like giving you real messaging on real data on like messaging. And it's been amazing. Like he built it out of the necessity because I think the story is this: like he was signed to a major label. His first album was a massive success. I think it sold 150,000 copies or something like that. And then when it was time for his second album to come out, he released that and it only sold 60,000 copies, right? And his question in the label meeting was like, well, why don't you just did you guys send it to the 150,000 people that bought my last album? I'm sure that they would want to buy this album because this album is actually Grammy nominated and the last one wasn't. So I know it's better music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then basically they were like, the label was like, well, we don't have that data. And he was just like, well, this whole thing is broken. So it just got him thinking about it, where he was like, he realized that he had no ownership of any of his relationship with his fans. So he was like, well, what if I build like a thing where I can text my fans one-to-one just so I can thank them, right? So he literally coded this thing and he built it on the Twilio API. And basically, like, he created a thing called Superphone, and it basically, he can store all his fan data. It connects to his Shopify, so he knows how much money his fans have spent with him over the course of time. He knows their birthday. He knows what they do for a living, and it's just a real way to like scale relationships and scale conversations. Yeah. And his whole theory is it's like success at the speed of communication. So like his whole thing is that, which is now proving to be, because now there's all these like people who are adopting the same ethos and like building platforms. Like, I don't know if you've seen like a lot of the massive celebrities like Diddy and stuff put their phone number out on social media.
Yeah, I've seen this trend.
A lot of them are doing it through this platform called Community that is like a direct, it's like very similar to Superphone, like what Ryan built with Superphone. Okay. So his whole thing recently has just been communication. And I think he's obviously seen how in every respect of his career and his personal life, he has like a lot of really interesting theories. I'm doing a pod with him. I'm doing a pod with him on Saturday. So
no way.
I'm sure you'll dig that.
Dude, I can't wait to tune in.
yeah, he's got he does a lot. And I told him this the other day, but I was like, dude, will you do my pod? He was like, absolutely. And Ryan is one of those guys where, like, in our relationship, he's so transparent. And I think he's so transparent as a dude when you get to know him. But like, if you only know him through his social media platforms, there's definitely a veil. Like, where so sometimes it's like, I'm always like, dude, like, we got to, because he just has all these crazy, like, cool theories that I just get so much value from, and like stuff that we're always talking about. And over the past 3 years, he's really taught me about like investing and creating like an investment thesis, which has been amazing, especially like in all the market volatility. And like over the past month, we've been talking about every other day and like catching up on all the crazy shit that's happening. But yeah, so I'll send you that pod because I think you'll get a lot from it.
Does he still
make music?
No, does he still only sleep like an hour a day or something?
Yeah.
Like
so here's the thing. That's the thing. That's like my biggest gripe with him is I'm just like, dude, like if you're like, if you're really a superhuman, you would understand how you need to value, like, fucking prioritize sleep. You know what I mean? Because everything in our world or in the fitness world is telling you like how powerful and important sleep is. And I know for myself, you know what I mean? Like, if I sleep I got my Aura ring. If I sleep 8 hours, get the right amount of deep sleep, like, I know that how much better I even feel. He has told me something where he was like, there's like some term for it where he's like, I'm one of the people, there's like a term for it. I'm one of the people that only needs to sleep 5 hours a night, is basically what he says.
Right.
So, but I also think part of it is just, he really just understands the value of time more than most. And so I think that his whole, I don't know, like, I'm going to ask him about his sleep regimen and stuff like that. But I just think he understands.
You haven't asked him?
I've asked him.
Dude, you should ask him on the podcast.
No, I'm going to ask him on the podcast, but I'm going to ask him like why he chooses to do that.
Right. Right. I'm sure it is what you're saying, right? Like the value of time. And I mean, like, yeah, I guess if I wasn't valuing like my physical experience so much, then I would want to, like, I could see myself wanting to have more time in the day, to experience, I guess.
Right. And that's the other thing that he's been getting into recently is like fitness. So it's been fun because I've been telling, because like, he's such just naturally a biohacker that I was like, when you get into this fitness shit, you're going to go ham, and I can't wait, because you're going to like take it to just such a crazy level that like, that I wasn't ready for. So I'm just like,
he looks kind of jacked sometimes.
He's been getting jacked lately. He's been getting jacked.
Yeah.
And he's also been doing this thing where he's been getting his 10,000 steps in every day. And he said that he does it by, going for like 3 10-minute runs per day.
Oh, nice. So
he said he'll just get
so super biohacky right there, right?
Right, already. I was just like, he's like, I flip on, like, I'll play like a 10-minute song and I'll just go run outside my apartment. Or the other thing he says he's been doing is just been running to and from like the grocery store. So if he has to like go to the store for something or like a meal. And I was like,
dude, that's a great idea.
I was like, wait, so you just run in your street clothes? And he's like, well, I'll have runners on, but yeah, like, I'm not worried about like if I'm wearing pants or not. I'm like, that's fucking epic.
That is pretty cool, man. I've like, you follow Aaron Alexander. Like, he's like always working out in his jeans and stuff,
Yeah,
like, dude, like, people who can do that, I respect, man. Like, I can't do it. I gotta have like sweats on or like something, something athletic. But
right, yeah.
So
Aaron's thing is cool because he's talking about how like you got to make sure your clothes aren't restricting your movement, which I think is really important. So he like has something where he like has like the squat test in your like clothes. Like if you buy a new pair of pants, like you should like sit down in a deep squat in them before you buy them, because like if you can't, and I've noticed this, if you can't sit in a deep squat in them, you won't ever get in a deep squat when you're wearing them, and essentially it's restricting
100%.
your movement, and then
dude, yeah, I agree so much, man. Like I mostly just wear like looser fitting clothes these days just because like it makes me want to move, like I actually don't own a pair of jeans at the moment, so that's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. Yeah. I was gonna ask, does Kyle work out?
Yeah, bro. So what's funny is Kyle has been he's always been into fitness. He used to be into track.
Oh, really?
In high school, he ran track. He's a great athlete.
That's cool.
But I think like when he got super kind of like laser focused on his career, he didn't have like a routine. And so I think there was some time where he was just kind of like whatever, but he's always tapping in with me and figuring out like what I'm doing and what I'm thinking about and stuff. I sent him because he was telling me, he's like, bro, I want to buy some workout equipment, because he was working with a trainer and he was like, it's getting to be super expensive. Like, I think I should just start training myself. And I was just like, oh, okay. I mean, whatever. And he's like, cause I actually built this gym in my backyard that's like amazing, kind of like based off of like all the equipment that you recommended. So I literally sent him your home gym tour, and I was like, just get this stuff. And he's got this like cool space at his crib. And so he used your I don't know if he bought all the same stuff or what, but he told me, he's like, yeah, that was helpful. Thank you. So So
That's
yeah,
dope. That's super dope.
yeah.
That's cool,
But
man. Well, at some point, I'm gonna have to,
you
when
gotta,
all this stuff is over, I'll have to make it to your pad.
for sure, bro. For sure, you gotta come down. Come anytime you want to come down to Southern Cali, bro. You're more than welcome.
I
Got a
appreciate
place you
that,
can
dude.
crash. We'll do the damn thing. I feel like got to get you out to a show.
Oh
Like
yeah, hell yeah, yeah. I would love that.
sick.
I haven't been to a hip hop show in quite some time. That would be super dope.
Have
Oh,
you?
dude, I was gonna ask you one more thing. The last time we talked, you were telling me that you saw Mac Miller a little bit before he passed,
Right.
and then I think you were gonna tell me like what that interaction was like, but then we got onto something else.
Oh,
And
so
obviously, you don't have to put this on the podcast,
yeah,
but
no. No worries, no
I'm
worries.
just curious.
No, so the Mac Miller story is, that I interned for this group called Pac Div. They went on tour
Right.
as support for Mac on his Blue Slide Park tour. So this was when he was like 18 years old, but he was like literally like had the #1 album in the country, was like on top of the world as like an 18-year-old. And so I did that whole tour with them. And so like we were on the road for probably 6 weeks together all across North America. And so we all became like cool, like definitely cordial. We weren't hanging out with them every single day, but we were seeing them every other day at the shows. We
Right.
were hanging together. We were partying together. We were having a good time, and so I built a little rapport with Mac during that time and his crew for sure. And yeah. And so it's funny because at the time I was just an intern, you know what I mean? And I was taking photography and just helping Pactiv however I could. And shortly thereafter, seeing Mac is what inspired me to become a manager. And more specifically, what I was like, dude, I think Kyle can do this shit. You know what I mean? At this level, I think he can do it at this level. And so went home, started working with Kyle. And then years later, like almost full circle experience, I was kind of stayed in touch with Mac's crew and stuff. And we would see them from time to time. Me and Kyle went to a couple Mac shows early in his career. But then about 2 weeks before Mac passed away, I was at a bar in Hollywood and I ran into his boy Q, who's like a friend of mine, an acquaintance for sure. And Q was like one of Mac's managers and stuff. And Mac was with Q. And Q kind of reintroduced me to Mac that night. And he was like, yeah, Nolan, like, I don't know if you remember, he used to like be with Pac Div. And Mac was like, oh yeah, for sure. Like he remembered. And then Q was like, he's the one who manages Kyle. And he was like, oh yeah. He's like, dope. And so he like, kind of like, it was a full circle moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mac showed a lot of love. And I kind of got the opportunity to tell him. What was powerful about that experience was I kind of got the opportunity to tell him like how me being on the road with him is what really like kind of nudged me over the edge of like really going all in on being a music manager, and I kind of thanked him because I was like, being on the road with you and seeing you do it at that level is what inspired me to be like, yo, I think this kid Kyle has what it takes and can do this, and that's what kind of like nudged me into like really going head down with Kyle and like helping him build it out, and Mac was like obviously super gracious and super humble when he kept telling me, he's like, nah, man, you guys are killing it. Like I'm inspired by what Kyle's doing and stuff. So that was like really, really cool, and it's just funny how the world works. But I think that was like another testament is like to like give people flowers while they can smell them. You know what I mean? I think in a lot of respects, like looking back on that interaction, that being the last time I saw him, had I not had said that, because there's so many like parts of me that's kind of just like wants to be cool and wants to be down. And then like, like being friends with him, I could have really easily been like, oh, well, I'm going to see Mac, like
Right.
I felt that way about, I mean, like obviously Nipsey and Kobe are like different, but like I felt that way about like not being assertive and like trying to, I have some friends who worked at the Mamba Academy and like being assertive and like trying to like say what's up to Kobe, who's like my favorite player of all time. Like that kind of, it doesn't eat at me because I'm like, okay, it is what it is. But like, like Nipsey's the same way. It's like, you got to give people flowers where they can smell them. I think like that instance with Mac, I would have looked back on it a lot differently had I just like played it cool guy and like been one of the bros, you know, because it's like, it takes some courage to be like, dude, Mac Miller is a couple years younger than me, you know what I mean? But like to let him know that that experience that we had, that we shared together was like fruitful in like the rest of my life. Like that's powerful. And I think, you know, I don't know.
That's cool, man. That's really powerful. That's a good lesson right there. And thanks for sharing that, dude. And it feels so good when you just reach out to someone and just tell them like, yo, like, I really like what you're doing. Like, you know, I respect you a lot. Like
that's how our relationship was born. You know what I mean? Like cause I was thinking a lot about that. It's like, there are like, you know, there's a handful of people out there who I'm like inspired by. And I think even with you, like what you were doing and how you're creating has inspired me to not only do this, but just like opened up my eyes about like building personal brand and you know what I mean? And so like I don't, you know, I think it's powerful and it's important to do that, you know, cause you always those are the things that I think you ultimately end up regretting is like that I didn't do this or that I didn't say that or the words left unsaid and stuff like that. And I think, you know, you're not going to be perfect all the time, but at the end of the day, it's like, you got to do what you can, you know?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm stoked you're doing this podcast, dude.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Dude, thank you. I mean, shit, how much time did we spend?
We did about 2
hours. Record. I know.
Long form,
dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, man. When do you think you're gonna put these out? Are you gonna batch them? I'm
gonna like drop this like next week. I mean, I'm gonna like
sick.
Download this and fucking chop some shit up and see how quickly we can get this thing out. That's the one thing I'm trying not to do is I'm trying to wash my hands with all this shit. Like I don't want to like hang on to it and overthink it. Like I got my little team that's kind of helping me and we're kind of establishing how to like create a flow. I did one last week with Colin Tilley, who's like a really dope music video director.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's like, super dope.
Yeah. He's insane. He's like worked with everybody, like literally directed some of just the most massive videos in the world. And he's like I've
heard the name.
Yeah. So
dude, I'm like so humbled to be on this podcast, man. Like I already know I'm going to be super interested in listening to it. So
episode 2, no, dude, honestly, bro, like this like when your shit is just like super, just like you have like 2 million subscribers on YouTube and shit. Like I'm placing an early bet on you just like reaching just mainstream massive success. And then it's going to carry this podcast. So the feeling is mutual, bro.
Hell yeah. Is Kyle going to come on?
Yeah. Honestly, we have to do it. We got it. I was like thinking about it. We got to do it. Cause I think, I think, I don't know. He's done a couple podcasts, but I'm going to do it with him. Maybe I'll even do it with him. Maybe I'll even do it soon with him. I want to make him one of the early guests.
Yeah, for sure. You got to.
I need his support early on this because he's going to be like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about over there? Because I'm telling so many stories, giving away so many keys to the castle that he's going to be like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? But if I get him on early, then maybe he just might understand and support it. But that's one of those other things, man. It's like I said, like there's even fear kind of surrounding that really early on because I just didn't, I don't want, you know what I mean? I don't want to like be this dude who's over here fucking spilling the beans. And sometimes
sure. And you're not trying to like leverage the relationship to like, right? But no, dude, I don't think so, man. Like it's coming off very just authentic, you know, and just like dope. For the good, just sharing and wanting to, like you said, like throw the rope back, man. That's so cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate your time. Thank you for the gems. I can't wait to listen to this back because there's some things I need to like for sure transcribe and apply, you know?
Appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, man. I enjoy learning about your like your life, man, your lifestyle, all the shit that you got going on. It's dope.
Right. And likewise, man. All right, bro. I'll let you go. Yeah, I'll be in touch. I'll send you any like clips and different things like that. And I'll stay in sync with you.
Sounds good, bud.
Okay. Take care, man. Peace.
Later, bro.
Wait, you gotta give me one of those strength side sign outs.